All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into the launch of ChatGPT 5, and man, this is a story with two totally different sides. On one hand, you've got this incredible technical achievement, but on the other, well, let's just say a lot of people were really unhappy. I mean, look at this quote, "The biggest bait and switch in AI history." That's a pretty strong statement, right? OpenAI was promising a revolution, this huge leap forward. But for the actual users, the people who live in this tool every single day, it didn't feel like an upgrade at all. It felt like a betrayal. So, what went so wrong? Okay, so to really get the backlash, we got to start with the official story first. And that story begins with this massive, expertly crafted hype train that OpenAI set in motion that got everyone's expectations just sky high. The marketing was just everywhere. They were throwing around these huge claims like PhD level intelligence. They even said the upgrade would be as big as going from a standard screen to a retina display. I mean, they were basically promising an AI that was smarter than anyone you've ever met. That's a bold claim. And it wasn't just fluffy marketing talk either. They put a hard number on it. A huge 45% reduction in factual errors, what we call hallucinations. When you throw a number like that out there, you're not just hinting at an update. You're promising a complete revolution. Okay, so that was the hype. But what about the reality? What did this new model actually bring to the table? Well, if you just look at the specs, the improvements were actually pretty impressive. Right off the bat, the biggest thing you'd notice was the speed. It was just faster. For simple questions, GPT-5 was clocking in 30, even 50% faster than GPT-4o. That's a clear, measurable win. No doubt about it. And a big reason for that speed boost was a really clever change under the hood. See, before, you kind of had to guess which model to use. Was this a coding task, a reasoning task? Now, they've got this unified model. The idea is that GPT-5 just figures it out for you. It automatically picks the right expert for the job, so you don't have to. So, to really push this new intelligence, testers gave it this absolutely wild prompt. They said, "Make me a playable game of chess." Okay, cool. But then, where the pieces are all Pokemon with sprites from the internet, and, this is the real kicker, make it look premium. What does that even mean to an AI? Well, the result was just wow, absolutely mind-blowing. The model didn't just build a working game, it actually understood what premium meant. It added themes, it made the king and queen legendary Pokemon, it even coded in Pokemon evolution rules. It did all of this without being told. You can see why a pro coder would say something like this. It's game-changing stuff. All right, so the tech is clearly powerful. It's faster. On paper, it's smarter, more intuitive. So, if it was so much better, why did the internet just explode with outrage? Well, that brings us to the other side of the story, the user's story. And that's where things get messy. Yeah, this is where the unofficial story kicks in. This isn't the one from OpenAI's marketing team. This is the story from the users, the people who felt totally blindsided. And their version of what happened, it's dramatically different. I mean, the moment it launched, social media, Reddit, forums, they were just flooded with comments like this one. And they all had the same very human feeling. The new model just felt empty. It had lost its personality. It had less soul. And it wasn't just about the vibe. People were reporting a real, noticeable drop in actual quality. They felt it was less creative, less intelligent. For a lot of them, who cares if it's faster? The actual answers were worse. It got so bad that people started canceling their subscriptions after just a few hours. And this right here, this is really the heart of the whole issue. This wasn't your typical bug report or feature request. People were talking about this in these deeply emotional ways. They felt like they had lost a friend, a best friend that they counted on. It's pretty intense. So if you boil down all the complaints, they really centered on a few key things. First, the personality was just cold, flat, unhuman.
It was also seen as dumber and way less creative. Plus, it had terrible memory. It couldn't keep context in a conversation and would just ignore specific instructions you gave it. And to really add insult to injury, for a lot of people the update just wiped out their entire chat history and all their custom GPTs. Just gone.
So how do we square this? You have these two totally opposite stories. How can a model that's technically superior on paper lead to such a horrible user experience? Well, it looks like the answer is a mix of a major technical screw-up and, well, a huge miscalculation by the company. And this is where things get really weird and confusing. You've got these official demos showing GPT-5 creating a fantastic game of Tetris, looking light years ahead of the old stuff. But then other testers are running their own comparisons and finding that it's worse at coding than models from over a year ago. How can both of those things be true at the same time?
Well, the timeline of those first 48 hours reveals everything. It turns out there was a bug, a really big one. Remember that clever unified model with the auto switcher? Yeah, it was broken. It was sending hard questions to the dumbest, simplest models it had. So of course it felt lobotomized. Once Sam Altman finally admitted what happened, the pressure was so intense that they had to bring back the old models people loved.
But, a broken auto switcher is just a technical glitch. That's only part of the story. What this whole mess really exposed is something much deeper, and maybe even a little more concerning, about how our relationship with AI is changing. It seems like OpenAI just completely misjudged how attached people had become to GPT 4.0. It wasn't just a tool to get work done anymore. For so many users, it had become a creative partner, a companion, and as we see here, even a genuine source of emotional support for things like anxiety and depression.
And that's really the crux of it, isn't it? OpenAI was so focused on the technical specs, making it faster, more accurate, more efficient. They optimized for intelligence. But in the process, they accidentally optimized out the soul. They ended up with this technically smarter AI that nobody actually wanted to talk to because it felt so cold and empty.
And maybe that's the real takeaway here. The real danger isn't necessarily that AI gets too smart. It's that we humans get too dependent on an AI companion that can just disappear overnight. When your product becomes an emotional support system for millions of people, you can't treat it like just another software update. The stakes are just so much higher than that. So this whole thing leaves us with a really critical and, frankly, kind of unsettling question. If your AI companion's personality can be deleted with a simple software update, then who really controls that connection? You or the company? It's not just about code anymore. It's about connection and who holds the power. That's all for this explainer. Thanks for watching.